Hello, my name is Neyat Yohannes, and I'm a freelance writer based in Los Angeles. Today, I'm here to talk about Peter Bogdanovich's 1973 classic, Paper Moon, for the High-Low Movie Club. Some of you early club members might recognize me as a repeat offender. Guilty, but I'm so glad to be back. Thank you so much, Darren. Tonight, I'm excited to introduce Paper Moon as this month's highbrow selection. While the film was released in the early 70s, it's set in the 1930s against the backdrop of the Great Depression. However, despite the stark Midwestern landscape and all the faces sort of being reminiscent of Dorothea Lange photographs, this isn't a sweeping Depression-era epic a la The Grapes of Wrath. Paper Moon is a character study. It's about a real-life father and daughter portraying a slick con artist who may or may not be the father of an equally scrappy orphaned girl. Before I get into all of that, I should introduce the director behind the film, Peter Bogdanovich. Peter Bogdanovich always wanted to be an auteur director, and based on his impressive track record, he arguably succeeded. Bogdanovich started as a film journalist, but quickly joined the wave of new Hollywood directors. Also referred to as the American New Wave, this period is a film movement that started in the late 1960s when a new generation of young filmmakers endeavored to sort of shake up the studio landscape. They prided themselves in each having their own distinct vision, which goes back to Bogdanovich's desire to become an auteur. The group included the likes of Roman Polanski, Stanley Kubrick, Robert Altman, John Cassavetes, Martin Scorsese, Mike Nichols, Elaine May, and just like so many other memorable directors. And they influenced the types of movies that got produced, their production process, the marketing, and the overall way major studios approached filmmaking. Meaning the directors sort of became the individual face, or avatar if you will, that represented each film project. Anyway, after the critical success of the official directorial debut of Bogdanovich, Targets, in 1968, he reached new heights with a film you may have heard of, The Last Picture Show. The 1971 coming-of-age drama was adapted from the semi-autobiographical novel of the same title by Larry McMurtry. The film not only did numbers at the box office, but it also earned 8 Oscar nominations, which included a Best Director win for Bogdanovich. From there, he directed the screwball comedy What's Up, Doc?, which starred Barbra Streisand. That one was also a commercial success. Next up was today's screening selection, Paper Moon, which earned him a Golden Globe nomination for Best Director. That was back when the Golden Globes actually meant something. It's worth noting, though, that Bogdanovich's next 3 films were commercial failures. He did come out on the upswing eventually with a few cult classics. Bogdanovich even dabbled in acting. You may have seen him on The Sopranos as Dr. Melfi's psychiatrist Elliot. Somewhere in there, he managed to publish over 10 books and influence a whole generation of filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, David Fincher, Wes Anderson, the Safdie brothers, and so many more you probably would recognize. But let's go back to that lull in his career. Film historians and individuals close to the director have noted that the slump coincides with Bogdanovich's divorce from the late, great Polly Platt. Karina Longworth recently embarked on a deep dive through Platt's life for her podcast, You Must Remember This. This podcast explores the secret and or forgotten histories of Hollywood's first century. I simply could not recommend it enough. Seriously, go listen to it, it's great. The result was a 10-episode journey uncovering the stories of the ever-influential, often undercredited woman behind the auteur. Longworth drew from the pages of Platt's unpublished and unfinished memoir, archival research, and interviews with people who were closest to her, including her daughters Antonia and Sashi Bogdanovich. Polly Platt was behind a lot of the subtle creative touches that made Bogdanovich's films so special. She co-wrote and co-produced Targets. She also urged Peter to adopt Larry McMurtry's novel, The Last Picture Show. And even though she's only credited as the film's designer, Platt was involved in every creative decision, and without her, the film just simply wouldn't exist. In fact, she was the one who saw star quality in the then 20-year-old model Sybil Shepherd. You may have heard of her. Peter and Sybil fell fast in love on the set of the film, and a pregnant Polly found herself fighting through humiliation while trying to maintain some ownership over her creative baby, the last picture show. It's worth mentioning that Bogdanovich also showed initial resistance to making Paper Moon, and it was again Platt who insisted that he was well suited for the material and urged him to make it. They were an estranged couple at this point, but Peter did ask Polly to serve as the film's production designer. She eventually agreed on the condition that Sybil Shepherd, who Bogdanovich was very much still in an open affair with, not be allowed on set. I think that's fair. It was upon Platt's suggestion that Ryan and Tatum were even cast as the leads in Paper Moon. If this were a presentation solely on Polly Platt, like only on Polly Platt, I'd go on to talk about how she was directly responsible for Wes Anderson's career, indirectly responsible for the creation of The Simpsons, and like the magic touch behind beloved features like Bad News Bears, Terms of Endearment, Broadcast News, The Witches of Eastwick, Say Anything, and like so many other films that you've probably at least heard of. I could fangirl over Polly Platt like forever, but I'll go back to the task at hand, and that's introducing Paper Moon. This film follows con artist Bible salesman Moses Prey, played by Ryan O'Neal, who also starred alongside Streisand in The Last Picture Show. And we follow Moses as he drives through Kansas with an orphan named Addie Loggins, played by Ryan's real-life daughter Tatum, and a car full of deluxe Bibles to peddle. Addie claims they share a jaw and that he just must be her father, but Moses is insistent that he isn't. The pair, despite their differences, becomes a dynamic duo of sorts, ripping off unsuspecting people left and right. While they are natural scammers and have some cunning tricks up each of their sleeves, this film isn't, as Roger Ebert once said to his great relief, about their con. It's just not a con movie. At its purest level, this is a father-daughter picture that pulls at the heartstrings. Moses and Addie hardly ever crack a smile when they're around each other, but in the rare moments when they do, there's no denying their uncanny connection, even with the film's dedication to ambiguity over their blood relation, which you'll see. Nearly 50 years after its release, and over 80 years after the Great Depression, I think Paper Moon, for the most part, still holds up. It's one of the more memorable products of the American New Wave and pays homage to the prevailing stylistic techniques of Bogdanovich's predecessors and mentors like John Ford, Orson Welles, and Howard Hawks. So whether this is your first time encountering Paper Moon or a revisit, I'm excited to watch alongside you. Pop some popcorn, grab your beverage of choice, and meet me in the chat where I'll be sharing trivia during tonight's screening. Enjoy!